Hey everyone, it's Naomi Wolf of Daily Clout, and I just thought I should hop on social media live because I just got the news that President Biden had dropped out of the presidential race. And I thought it was important, even though I wasn't planning to do any social media today, to get on live and give my analysis and answer, if I can, any questions from you. All right, so if you're hearing this for the first time, President Biden about 13 minutes ago submitted or made public a letter of resignation. And that means, of course, that at the same time, the media, legacy media, got the letter of resignation because it always is quite coordinated. And he's out of the race. And it's, a gracious letter. It basically says, thank you so much for having given me the chance to be your president. But I'm going to focus on, it's kind of heartbreaking in a way that it has to be worded like this. I'm going to focus on, giving my best to the end of my term as president, as opposed to running for reelection. It doesn't say anything about medical reasons. As I read it very quickly. It doesn't mention pressure. It doesn't talk about spending time with his family. Although it does rather significantly say something like, I'm paraphrasing, I thought it best for the good of the country to go ahead and step aside and not run for reelection. So bombshell, but also not a bombshell. Those of you who follow my work know that I wrote a piece called Lady McBiden about 6 days ago. Hey, everyone. And it says the audio keeps cutting out. Let me know if you all can hear me. I've got 4 bars. Audio has been weird ever since the global outage by CrowdStrike. But let me know if you can hear me okay. And if you can't, try to get more bars yourselves and see if that helps. Or you can also try to turn off the video and see if the audio itself is better. Other people are saying the sound is clear. All right, so my essay, which I've really been trying to share as widely as possible, call attention to, because I thought it was important, predicted all of this. And I'm not a prophet. I'm not a psychic. I am a former political consultant to the Democrats. So I know what's going on the inside to some extent. Obviously, it was many years ago, but some things don't change. And the DNC establishment is kind of a mafia type establishment. And so I could tell from the nature of the leaking, and forgive me, those of you who do follow me, you'll hear a little bit of repetition, but for those of you who don't, as I said in my last broadcast, it was clear from the leaking that there was a civil war going on. So what is leaking? Leaking is people who are insiders talking to the press in selected ways without their names attached, anonymously, right? Blind sources is what it's called in the journalism biz, very often in order to push their own agenda. So if, for instance, a group of powerful DNC donors, and the donors on the Dem side are so powerful, they're probably just as powerful on the Republican side, but the Republicans are better at not kind of naming the donors as being this major force for every decision. But the donors on the Democratic side are some of the most powerful people in the world, including Silicon Valley, right? And so it was clear that they were leaking like crazy to legacy media for the last week, at least, certainly since the assassination attempt on the 13th of July, that Biden was incapacitated, that he should step aside for the good of the party, that he, is impaired. And you could also tell that there was a coup brewing, or a civil war, I should say, brewing, because Oh, that's interesting. Formerfeds.org says it's only on @Joe Biden / U0026, not on whitehouse.gov. Well, that's certainly important. I would like more confirmation before I go ahead with this broadcast, unless we're going to go ahead with the proviso that I only have one source now, that the internet is picking up one source. I was sent the resignation letter by someone in politics whom I trust. And that's why I jumped on board. But you internet out there, go ahead and confirm, please. Husband saw on network news. Okay. Wendy Hallgren, can you let me know what network news? And then I can consider that confirmed. But everyone check, all right? Unlike other commentators on the interwebs, Brian O'Shea and I both only go with a story if it's confirmed by two credible sources. So back to, with the proviso that we're confirming it. Oh, Jill Biden retweeted Joe's Twitter post. Okay. And Fox just read Biden's letter, which promoted Kamala. All right, fair enough. Okay, so let me just back up before I respond to your questions and let you know kind of what just happened from an insider's perspective. So there's been desperate maneuvering on the part of donors and probably the DNC itself and probably the staff, right? The campaign staff and the White House staff to pressure President Biden to resign. I think that, and the official White House Twitter came out, says Robin Sharp. Great. And Madiba says New York Times and Breitbart have confirmed. It's all over the news media. All right. It is confirmed. BBC is saying he endorsed Kamala, though the letter did not. That's interesting. I mean, the letter was gracious about the vice president, but it wasn't a formal endorsement. That's correct. So the insiders, again, it was clear that Biden had increasingly no or very little support from the people who count, including his own campaign staff who want, remember, it's just one campaign. Right? They want to be employable. They don't want to have their names in the future identified with the worst debacle in, modern presidential history. So, and the same thing with White House staff, right? I mentioned in my last broadcast that you don't know the names of, his chief of staff in the White House, probably, unless you're really nerdy around politics, or his campaign manager. And that's not an accident. It's because these people are trying to stay behind the scenes because they don't want the mess of this all over their resumes for their next gig. So the other point I made last time, and I think it's worth repeating, is that when you kept seeing President Biden being put in very humiliating circumstances, very embarrassing circumstances again and again in legacy media settings in which people like George Stephanopoulos would ask him one horribly embarrassing question after another, basically along the lines of, but you're losing your mind, right? The only people who can make that happen are the campaign staff and the White House staff, because, and please let me say allegedly so I don't get sued, but basically they sign off on all these questions in advance. They sign off on the reporter, they sign off on the venue, they see the questions, they vet the questions. If that was unscripted or not expected, that network would never get another interview. So that was basically President Biden. You almost have to feel sorry for him if he wasn't such a heinous traitor, but that's another question. He was being put in a position by his own people to force him to resign. Now, I will also say that my essay, Lady McBiden, which I really recommend you guys all, not to promote myself, but I think it's an important piece of the puzzle. It made the case that the assassination attempt could well have originated from inside. Obvious, right? Half of America thinks that, but from inside the White House. And to me, don't arrest me. Hypothetically, the suspect number one was the family, Mrs. Biden / Hunter Biden. Director Cheadle is a lady Lady McBiden, a First Lady, hire the director of the Secret Service, and um, there were a lot of problematic issues that I raised in my essay. For instance, how close she was, 54 minutes away at the exact same time that President Trump began speaking in Butler, Pennsylvania. She had an event at the exact same time. And I just see her as someone who doesn't want to leave the White House and who is not, sorry, but not that smart, and who could be making like the whole kind of direction that the Secret Service director was getting for what to say, let alone the debacle of the lack of security around President Trump, really suggests to me someone high up, in the chain of command, which could mean the family, hypothetically, don't arrest me, and someone who's not thinking that clearly, like power unchecked, especially for people who are not elected, right, can be very dangerous. And I just can't see, that very catastrophic decision to endanger President Trump or to, do enough, let it happen on purpose type activity to allow a bystander to be shot dead, 2 people, injured, 3 people injured if you count President Trump. I just, even if the most nefarious people in the world wanted to get rid of President Trump, that was a messy, gross, chaotic, ill thought out situation. And, as I've explained in my essay, it's not going to have originated from the Secret Service. Certainly it's not going to have originated, I can't imagine, from, the chief of staff of the White House or the campaign manager. Terrible audio. I'm sorry about that. I'm not sure what to do. Let me know if you can hear me at all or if I should just hang up and try again somehow. Bottom line, and then I'll sign off if you really can't. Stuttering audio. I bet it's stuttering. Can you understand what I'm saying? Let me know. But not horrible, can still hear you well. Okay. If you guys have any suggestions, please let me know. I don't have my computer with me, so a little static here and there. All right. I didn't hear who you're talking about. I'm talking about President Biden and his First Lady. Okay, good. Jill Biden. Yeah, that's who I'm talking about. Okay, thanks. All right. So all of the hallmarks of that catastrophic security situation suggest to me someone very senior on the inside who is not, it's not originated with the Secret Service because they don't want a mess like that, right? In my view, that doesn't mean it wasn't executed. Obviously, the Secret Service director is responsible for the horrible lapses that led to that, tragic set of events on the 13th of July. But I don't see it. It seems to me, as a former insider, to be a horrible set of mistakes. All right, like someone unhinged on the inside, who has power, directing a situation that leaves President Trump vulnerable. So the other thing is that Hunter Biden is a drug addict. He's not thinking that clearly. And again, don't arrest me. This is not libel. It's not defamation. It's hypothetical. I'm not saying anyone did anything. I'm just saying, thinking as an analyst, the messiness and chaotic nature of what happened on July 13th suggests to me someone or several people who are not thinking rationally, who are thinking emotionally, who are driven by emotion, who may even be like, have disturbed reasoning, right? As a sociopath or drug addict might, or who's just not that intelligent. And it just doesn't feel like anyone sophisticated, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So let me now go to what it means that President Biden withdrew. What I am guessing is that, and this really hasn't been in the legacy media, understandably enough, right? A terrible, violent crime got committed on July 13th. And the Republicans are so effective right now as a result of President Trump being kind of like, I used to really not like him, but I'm pretty impressed right now. I'm nonpartisan, so I'm trying not to go to either side and just to analyze. But, you know, he really, after this traumatic experience, he got on stage like 3 days later. And his family got on stage 3 days later. His daughter-in-law got on stage 3 days later, into a situation that could have been as lethal, right? So this is a very personally resilient human being and family and community, right? I mean, they could have just fallen apart after something as chaotic and traumatic as an assassination attempt that killed people and injured the president. I mean, you just PTSD, you know, it's so hard to walk back on a stage after something like that has happened to you, I imagine. Or, you know, Melania, for God's sake, you know, what courage for her to walk on stage after something like that happened to her husband. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, because the Republicans, and certainly Trump and his family, have been so strikingly calm and eyes on the prize in the wake of July 13th, people really aren't analyzing the impact of July 13th on what's happened inside the White House. And we can't know, right? I don't have sources inside the White House. But no one, if you're a donor, if you're White House chief of staff, if you're the campaign manager, if you're working on the campaign, if you're the, you know, spokesperson for the campaign. By the way, they have a lot of staffers from DHS, which is interesting and unusual. But no matter, all of that, no matter, right? No one wants to be associated with a violent crime. Like, no one knows what happened yet. The investigation hasn't been done. It may never be done, right? Depending on, you know, how secure the coup is that allowed it to be done. As I said in my last podcast, the one with Brian, which we're going to post shortly, there, you know, I see two coups that are battling it out. And we don't know which one has won yet. There's the coup of whoever's backing, the attempted coup of whoever's backing President Biden and Mrs. Biden. And then there's the attempted coup of the Democratic establishment and the donors. And that's the fight, right? So all I want to say is, if you're a donor, you know, you may be a very forceful tech bro, you may be a, you know, gigantic, you know, I don't know who they've got, who are the big donors. They're hedge fund guys, they're cyber fortunes, they're big trial lawyers, right? You don't want to be anywhere near a violent crime. You don't want to be associated with anyone who committed a violent crime. So it really is Shakespearean, because there's this pool of blood in the White House right now, and people are trying not to talk about it. But, you know, one man was killed and 3 people were injured. That's going to end up in someone's lap, right? And so no one wants to be around that. So that has no one wants to touch it. No one wants to be in the room where it gets investigated, understandably, right? Especially if they had nothing to do with it, which I keep saying, I think the Democratic establishment did have nothing to do with it. It's too weird and hysterical and clumsy a set of circumstances. So all that being said, it's since last Saturday, it's ramped up the need for the Democratic establishment to get rid of the Biden family and have them gone, right? And really, whatever emerges, to pin it on them is my expectation, right? Whether they were involved or not. that has ramped up, or to just pin it on like someone else, right? Will it be Russia? Will it be China? Will it be, a lone gunman? It has to not, it has to be explained away quickly. So, and people have to distance themselves from anyone involved in it. So I expect that you'll see Director Cheadle resigning if she hasn't yet. I haven't checked the news except for this news since I've been out for a walk. I think you'll expect a lot. Well, you're going to see obviously people on the campaign, which doesn't exist anymore, fleeing. I doubt that Kamala, this is a bet. I'm betting that Vice President Harris isn't going to just inherit a campaign staff, right? Maybe, right? Maybe they'll be like, I loved serving under President Biden on his campaign. I'm honored to serve, Vice President Harris. I suspect there are going to be defections because of the mess and the questions. I also think, you've had a demented, I'm sorry, I just have to be honest. You've had a demented president for probably since 2021, looking back at least. And all of those records are still there, right? So everything that happens in a White House is public record. So whoever comes in now, we don't know how bad it was. Right. And we don't know who made the decisions. And as I said in my essay, Lady McBiden, she might have been making all the decisions, in a kind of Edith Wilson, President Wilson's wife, who basically ran the country for 2 years after he had a stroke. And no one sane wants to be attached to that. So I expect you'll see the collapse of the campaign structure, the campaign establishment, a lot of movement. Right now, resumes are going out, is my guess. And so Vice President Harris probably will have a scramble to even assemble a campaign staff. Maybe not, maybe people can't wait to serve her. The other, okay. I should probably pause there. I'm having a lot of great questions come in, but I want to kind of look ahead and strategize a little bit. Right now, what this does do on the chessboard, guys, is who gets a gigantic boost is RFK Jr. Gigantic boost, because between RFK Jr. and Vice President Harris, many, many more people, I think, will want RFK Jr. Vice President Harris has not distinguished herself, to say the least. A really historic opportunity, first African American / Indian vice president, first female vice president. There was a big debate on Twitter this morning in which I was saying, that Vance made some mistakes in attacking her for being a government employee, because there are 30 million government employees in this country, including firefighters and police and public school teachers, and they vote. So it was just a clumsy way to take to attack her, and that I thought he would do much better raising substantive criticisms. But the point is, she's not distinguished, and it's hard to think of her accomplishments. Now, the legacy media will try to buff and spin it, but I'm guessing, this is me guessing, RFK Jr. is independent. I feel like some really interesting realignment is going on right now and is going to continue. I don't think Kamala is going to succeed. Mrs. Harris, Vice President Harris, is going to succeed in rallying the Democratic establishment. I don't. I think you've started to see a lot of the real power brokers in the world align with President Trump, and that's the Palantir interests around around Vance. But you also kind of saw a shift in the legacy media and how they started to cover him much more positive. Mark Zuckerberg said something positive about him. So that was after it became clear that Biden was demented, right? And that someone had tried to kill President Trump, and that the lapses all seem to be have come out of the Secret Service. And then you're going to see, I think you're going to see the Democratic establishment rally around RFK Jr. And I just want to stress, I'm not affiliated with any campaign. I am nonpartisan. Disclosure, I know and like RFK Jr., but I don't support or endorse any candidate. It's very important. We're nonpartisan at Daily Clout. This is just my truly objective guess. I think right now he's being courted by, there are a lot of meetings with Democratic donors going on right now, because I don't even know, I haven't even looked, can an independent be, supported by the Republican establishment? I literally don't know. We're really in kind of uncharted territory. But he's had a gigantic boost. I mean, it's like really Kamala Harris or RFK Jr. It's really now I just predicting it's going to be much more of a head-to-head RFK Jr. Trump fight, which I wish everyone had listened to Naomi many months ago. I said, Trump RFK Jr. ticket, it's unbeatable. They should align instead of being at loggerheads. And so now people are asking about the mechanics of the convention, the Democratic National Convention. I don't know the answer there, because I mean, first, you guys have to understand that conventions, as I understand it, much of what happens at a convention is tradition and not law. My understanding, I could be wrong. I haven't refreshed my knowledge for a while. But the reason I conclude this, especially for Democrats, is that they're often innovating. For instance, Misty Law Fleury, great handle, says the Dem super delegates will subvert the democratic process now. And, the whole like super delegates thing, they really kind of make it up, like keeping RFK Jr. off the ballot, right? They kind of change the rules to fit the situation, as Karen Waterbury says, and that's true. And conventions are not in the Constitution, right? To my knowledge, they're not anywhere in our founding documents. They are traditions. So I don't know what can happen. But I would say to both the Trump team and the RFK Jr. team that it's a very treacherous situation right now in some ways, and that if they don't align, each of them can be crushed by the Democratic establishment rallying behind Vice President Harris, even reluctantly, even even ultimately, what is that expression? Holding their nose, right? Really not wanting to give her the reins of the country, the power. But with the cheating that the Democrats are planning to do, they can squeak Mrs. Harris and whoever is her VP in. They could, right? Because it will be so close. But if Trump and RFK Jr. align at this point, well, they can't. How can they align? He's got a vice president. Darn it! He should have listened to Naomi. I mean, I guess the only way they could align is for RFK Jr. to take a position in the cabinet in advance and make the announcement and withdraw from the race and endorse President Trump. That's the only way they could align theoretically and get those voters. Again, I'm not recommending that. People have to, I really do believe that if people feel compelled to run for president, they should run for president. And, RFK Jr. has done a great deal. It's taken tons of personal courage to run for president on all of their parts, but also on his part, especially because, the fact that the Biden administration wouldn't give him Secret Service protection is so insanely dangerous. It was clear to those of us who've served a president or vice president in the past. It should be hyper clear to everyone post July 13th how murderously negligent it has been for the Biden administration to not give Secret Service protection to RFK Jr. And Karen Waterbury says RFK to head the CDC. She also says something else. I believe Hillary is salivating in the wings. Well, Karen Waterbury, I have to agree with you. I think we have not seen the last of Mrs. Clinton, and I think that they might be arranging to dust off Mrs. Clinton. You know, they might. I mean, she's been, you know, she's been waiting in the wings, and they don't have a deep bench. They don't. No one really likes Gavin Newsom. He's destroyed California. Who else have they got? Michelle Obama doesn't seem excited about, you know, picking up where her husband left off. So they've got very few people to turn to, and that's why I keep thinking RFK Jr. is not out of it's a very interesting moment for RFK Jr. because he could be being courted by both campaigns at this point. He could. Sure. Team Clinton with Harris is possible. And let's see, PK from AK. There's so many comments. Let me try to read them. Murderously negligent, interesting term. Well, think about it. I mean, all of the horrible lapses with the Secret Service in Butler, Pennsylvania, clearly allowed a gunman to wound and could have killed President Trump. Now compare that to no Secret Service. And you guys really have to think about the fact that private security at that level costs millions. And no matter, someone can be affluent and be bankrupted in a year by having to hire the kind of security personnel that someone like RFK Jr. has to hire. And I've spoken at one of his events, and there was a lot of security there, and they were high-level security, and that is very, very expensive. So Josh Shapiro has to be figured into the mix somehow, though, says Misty Law Fleury. Mayor Bear says, I pray RFK Jr. endorses President Trump. And let's see, Misty, yep. So there we are. Basically, the DNC could do anything, but what I really want you all to understand right now is that it's an active war, and also that on the inside, it's clear that it hasn't been settled, right? The fights, no one has aligned in a direction yet, and you can assume that people are arguing hard and making, threats and promises. I mean, it's like bribery and threats. I don't mean physical threats. I mean the kind of lobbying that the DNC and the donors are doing is like, Kamala could be any of these characters who are in play right now could be being offered multi-million-dollar gigs to sit on the board of, Facebook or Google, or they could be, offered, or they could be being bullied, right? I mean, these people are really bullies. Or there could be opposition research we haven't seen yet, scandals we haven't seen yet. October is when the scandals come out. That's why it's called October Surprise. And, everyone involved could be being threatened with exposure, blackmail, their loved ones could have something embarrassing that they're being told will be revealed if they don't align with, these various agendas. So that's what's going on right now. It's really like the Ides of March. I mean, I keep thinking of Shakespeare and his historical moments where there's a palace coup and you don't know who to trust. And so prayer X tense his Bannon sits in prison. Exactly. He can't advise. He can't help. Miss Lou too says Naomi is press secretary. Thank you. But I think I'm much better behind the scenes, or just one-to-one with all of you. Bannon's in prison. Honestly, I'm afraid. How can I put this? I hope everyone is safe, right? I hope the Bidens are safe. I hope Vice President Harris is safe. I hope, Nancy Pelosi is safe. I hope all the candidates and vice presidential candidates are safe. And I only say that because of the incredibly bloody, chaotic situation on July 13th and the wholly irresponsible, unaccountable way Director Cheadle has responded. The other thing I'm going to restate, because we did this conversation live, but it hasn't yet been edited and posted. My husband, Brian O'Shea, and I did a discussion about this yesterday, is the reason I say there are two coups happening right now, right? And I'll repeat this from yesterday, but you've got to understand when there's a coup, especially in what has been a strong democracy. I'm just going to plug in my phone. It doesn't happen all at once, and you can have like a full coup in effect over there, and vestiges of democracy and representational government proceeding over there. So, and this is, there are really good historical examples of this. For instance, I always mention at these times Mussolini's coup in Italy in the 1920s, because there was this hangover period when the parliamentarians in Italy kept legislating. They thought they were in a democracy, and meanwhile the black shirts were beating up opposition leaders, imprisoning people like Bannon, Peter Navarro, threatening people, threatening other parliamentarians, beating up other parliamentarians, threatening union leaders, communists, socialists, outspoken clergy, and then they went into Parliament, and the parliamentarians kept legislating, and the black shirts just assembled and assembled and assembled in Parliament. And it took a little while for the parliamentarians to realize that it was over, right? There was this hangover period. And that's, I'm afraid, where we are too right now. And here's why I say this. I'm very worried that Senator Johnson said that they were only allowed to ask 4 questions of the FBI and Director Cheadle, and that the FBI said submit a request for a FOIA. Because what that says to me is that the power has shifted. FBI is not answerable to our elected officials. Our elected officials have to beg the FBI for information. Well, that's a coup, right? When the senators can only ask 4 questions, it means they don't have any power over the FBI or DHS or the Secret Service or whoever is aligning to bring about these outcomes. That's it's beyond concerning. It's terrifying. And Max Abramson rightly says the IRS and DOJ have been weaponized by the Biden-Harris administration. Yeah, and Misty Lawflurry, I'm sorry, I can't help laughing when I read that, says, holy crap, they said it can only come from FOIA. That's what I heard from Senator Johnson. And Karen Waterbury says, right, ask no questions, have no open discussion, provide no data, facts, evidence. That's what's been going on in the USA. Yeah, exactly. So, that's why you guys have to really learn how to read between the lines, because Senator Johnson is not going to say, no one wants to give the press release saying we're powerless, right? But if you know what power looks like, you can tell when a senator is outraged and says they're not answering our questions, that there's been a shift in the power. Now, maybe it's not permanent. There can be these crises and scrambles before a realignment, but it's bad. It's bad for the senators to not be able to get answers from people who are supposed to be below them in the chain of command. Ms. Lutu says subversion of power and separation. Okay, Mystic Maverick, thank you, very helpful. Senator Johnson sent a 4-page letter one day after 6/13 to Secret Service, DHS, FBI directors with lots of questions. And Marlene says, also, Senator Hawley said FBI told him to leave the Butler, PA site. Did that happen? Can you confirm that? I didn't see that. Good Lord. Christine Novak, says prayer intercessors have been praying for exposure of corruption. We depend on people like you to speak out what you are seeing. Well, don't just depend on me, guys. Keep me safe, please. And you keep me safe by spreading the word. It's dangerous to be one or two people raising questions. It's much safer to have 300 million people raise questions and insist on representational government and accountability, and also like accountability for crime. A very serious crime was committed on July 13th, and there's no perpetrator, right? No one's being investigated, no one's been arrested. It's very serious. And I just want to remind everyone, again, I said this yesterday, but President Trump got injured, but everyone on Capitol Hill probably feels scared. Because if there can be that kind of security lapse, the same administration that's securing President Trump is securing the Capitol, right? Or is securing the old executive office building or securing the White House. So it's bad and it's scary. And I just want to say, again, everyone should listen to Naomi the first time. I've been telling you for 2 years. For 2 years, I've been telling you, especially if you watch War Room, that these days would come. And they're here right on schedule. I said the 4 months leading up to the election would be extremely dangerous. There would be power outages, cyber attacks, disruptions in the food supply, and there would be violent acts, war, international incidents, wars. Look what happened in Yemen, what happened in Gaza, and instability. And sure enough, it's happening, but how can I put it? You guys need to do your part to stand firm, not overreact, not get hysterical, take all media with a grain of salt. And as I always say, secure your water, secure your food, learn how to defend your family peacefully. Make a plan with your neighbors if everything goes down, right? Which I fully expect it to at some point before November, certainly more now than ever. You need to be able to be calm, just like that beautiful audience in Butler, PA was calm when all this was happening. Many dozens of people could have died or been injured if people had panicked and stampeded for the exits or trampled people. It's happened before, and that didn't happen. It was really miraculous. So you need to be that calm. Okay, that's weird. Something just took a picture. That is very strange. I guess I better hang up now. I don't know what happened to the stream, but here we go. That was really weird. My phone literally just took a picture of me, and I did not ask it to, but I'll keep going. But yeah, you can't, if you want to get through this with your country intact and hopefully stronger than ever, you really can't leave it to talking heads or prominent people or your elected officials to be brave on your behalf. You need to be brave. That is the only way we get through this, is by 300 million people not complying and demanding, where is our democracy? Where is our accountability? We want to see the records. The people right now, your representatives in Congress and in the Senate, need to know that you have their back, right? Because they're scared. So, do everything you can do to be involved and be vocal and to support them and to resist stonewalling, basically. And if that means throwing your support to a candidate who isn't stonewalling, do so. If it means writing to your representative to say that you support them demanding accountability of the FBI and DHS and Secret Service, do so. But it's how can I put it? It's a scary time, because if the FBI and the Secret Service and DHS are not answering questions, that means that they feel they don't have to answer questions. The thing about politics, though, is that everything can shift in an instant. So with Biden gone, and if the DNC doesn't rally around Harris, that the chessboard will change again, and DHS and Secret Service may feel like they do have to answer questions because they don't want to be at the mercy of whoever is ascending to power. All right, let's see what else. What other the links is Marlene. Thank you. We will spread the word. Thank you, Kim Nafziger. 100% says Danny Blue. And donate, says Roscoe Singh. Certainly that helps for sure. Yours is the second reference to 613. I'm sorry, I meant to say 713 if I said 613. What happened then? I'm referring to the assassination attempt against President Trump on July 13th. Autumn Smith, hey Autumn, notice the drop out letter isn't written on White House presidential letterhead. Good call there, Autumn. No presidential seal or anything. You're right about that. What does that mean? Oh my gosh, everything I just said has to be bracketed until we know more about that. That is, it means it's not official. Wow. Okay, that's really good noticing, Autumn. Autumn is a fantastic reporter out of Michigan, absolutely intrepid. Interesting about the letter, what does it mean? It means it's not official. Doug says he's still in it, he's bluffing. Oof. Fake? Well, okay, this is interesting. Could it be that, I mean, that's a big find, right? And I'm processing it live. Could it be that Mrs. Biden wrote the letter and it's not yet an official act because she wants to get the heck out of there? And then Angie Policelli says, wow, good call. No wonder peeps have been saying it's not a real letter. And Misty Lawflurry says, and it didn't get posted to whitehouse.gov at first either, did it? And Angie Policelli says, yes. Kim H says, wow, fantastic sleuthing. It really is. And I'm embarrassed. I mean, I knew there was something unusual about it, but I was in a hurry and I didn't look at it properly and I didn't register that. So good job, Autumn Smith. And that's really, really, really interesting. And so now someone see if a letter needs to be on White House official stationery in order to be official. I don't think so, but maybe. And CB3PO says it's on Biden's Twitter page. Again, that's not a formal notification. And Jennifer Small reminds us he's not leaving office. He's dropping out of his party nomination. That's correct. But still, I know why it's not on official letterhead, I think. There are laws that, to comply with Federal Election Commission law, you can't campaign out of the White House or you have to separate campaigning and governing. And so you can't send something related to the campaign using resources from the White House. That's my guess. That said, you'd think there would be campaign letterhead, or even just like official Joe Biden letterhead. And it really was like, something ripped off of a notepad practically. And that's what people are saying. I heard it doesn't, because it's coming from the Joe Biden as a candidate, not the president. That's correct. It's my guess. Exactly. You are correct, Naomi. It's against the law, says Angie Policelli. Fascinating conversation. Autumn Smith says this isn't campaigning. It's a notice to the American people. I agree with you. I hear you, Autumn. We don't know, right? We don't know the answer yet. We don't even know, like, I'm nervous because we've just had this whole fascinating conversation, but until I see more documentation, until it's on whitehouse.gov, I'm not even sure this is fully confirmed, right? It's not fully enough confirmed for me until you have a statement from him in person, right? I mean, honestly, so many powerful people want him out. Someone could have written that letter to get him out, and that it's just too embarrassing to say, no, 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 I didn't write that letter. I mean, he's surrounded by people who want him out. So people want to know what your handle is. They can't see your comments, Autumn. You may not be able to see your comments because she is on Facebook. But where do people find you, Autumn? Put that in the comments and I'll read it. She's really worth following. Autumn Smith absolutely accurately says, yeah, nobody knows who's running the show. Jennifer Small says the joke is Jill hasn't notified Joe that he dropped out. Like literally, that's possible, you guys. I mean, I shouldn't laugh. It's all very tragic for our country and tragic for that family, but that is literally possible. Or the DNC hasn't notified the family that they released that letter. Like anything is possible right now. We don't know. But that's like, it's funny, but it's also terrifying because just like you and I on a Sunday afternoon at 3:00 East Coast time don't know what's going on and see that no one's in charge. China sees that no one's in charge. Saudi Arabia sees that no one's in charge. Russia sees that no one's in charge. We are so weak in front of the world right now. And that's why I really want us calmly to get through this time, because it is a prime moment. God, we're very vulnerable right now in national security terms. If someone sends missiles our way, who's going to press the button to defend us? Who's going to be in the Situation Room, right? I mean, I know that he hasn't resigned the presidency, but it's, you know, everyone has lost confidence in Joe Biden as a leader, and our enemies see that. So it's a very vulnerable moment. All right. It's been 51 minutes. I should wrap it up unless you guys have any pressing comments. Oh, wow. Prayer X10 says he's not even going to speak till later next week. My goodness. Doug says, why did they introduce a new term, cheap fake? Make it the main story for 1 week, then turn on a dime on him after his performance in the debate, which was actually pretty good for Joe Biden. I don't know the answer, but I don't agree that it may have been good for Joe Biden, but I think his handlers had been able to cover up the extent of his dementia up until that point. And so it was a point of no return. Let's see. Thank you, Naomi, says Max Abramson. Okay, guys, I have to let you go, but thank you for joining me. We have almost 7,000 people on this live stream. I appreciate it. And here you go, Autumn Smith. Follow me on X at corrupt1890058, and she's well worth a follow, you guys. Maybe he's dead, says used to be disgusted, tries to stay amused. God forbid, but again, anything is possible, which is not reassuring. You don't want to live, you know, that saying, a Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times. Things are very, very, very interesting right now, and I'd rather they were boring. Peace is boring. Prosperity is boring. You know, this is all like kind of eat your popcorn, watch social media with fascination for us right now, but it could very easily turn into something not funny at all, like an attack on the homeland by an enemy, a terrorist attacks that are coordinated from some of the 30 million people who waltzed right across the border without being deported if they had ties to terrorists, according to J.J. Carroll, a former border agent, my husband's co-host. A dirty bomb, you know, the next pandemic. I mean, I don't wish, we in America are so used to a stable, advanced, peaceful civil society that we have no idea how awful it is when the rule of law has broken down and representational government has broken down. It's, you know, much of the rest of the world lives without the rule of law. And that means women and children are in fear. and are brutalized. It means strong men, rise up, militias rise up, gangs rise up, and it means police are scared to go in whole swaths of cities. It means that infrastructure breaks down, corruption escalates. You have to bribe everyone to get anything done. Like, you literally, I don't even want to describe it to you because I want it all to be theoretical to you as Americans. But that's what's at stake right now, right? We could be losing our democracy, losing our republic. So you all have to be the vanguard, the red, white, and blue line. I don't care, Democrats, Republicans, independents, rich, not rich, gay, straight, black, brown, white, doesn't matter. We have to unite and stay calm as Americans and not let our system unravel. All right. I've got to go, you guys, but if you value my commentary and Daily Clout and Outspoken, I need your help. Please support our sponsors. We can't do this without them. It really makes a difference, and they are also awesome. And in this case, go to getnativepath.com/Daily Clout. It is a collagen supplement. It will blow you away. It's so good. Will give you endless energy, keep you healthy. I can't say pain-free. For me, it changed my life. Took away my mobility issues, made me pain-free. I'm not going to go beyond that. But, hundreds of 5-star reviews, 365-day guarantee, and 45% off. So getnativepath.com/Daily Clout, 45% off. If you do that, which I'm asking you to do, it helps us stay on the air and bring you commentary like this, which is actually kind of expensive to produce and distribute to the extent that we need to make an impact. All right. So I'm trying to help. We need your help, and let us all again unite as Americans. It's time to lay down every silly, stupid division and just remember that we are one nation under God. All right, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.